Okay, today we're going to look at the Maix Dock dev board by SpyP. It has the K210 MCU on it, which is a very powerful little processor known for Edge AI. It's a dual core 64-bit processor running at 400 megahertz, but can be overclocked to 800 megahertz. The Maix Dock dev board comes with a parallel LCD display, which will plug just into that FCC connector. It also comes with a little Wi-Fi aerial because it has a little ESP8266 on board for Wi-Fi connectivity. And also it comes with a little camera module here, if we can just get him out. That's the little camera module there, and that will plug into that FCC connector. So we can do computer vision on it. All of this got delivered to my place for $45 Australian. So an insanely cheap bit of hardware. It does have a MicroPython port for it called MaxPy, and we're going to be programming it in Python using that MicroPython port. So here's the rest of the hardware that I used. I need a power source, so that's just a small 2-cell LiPo hobby battery. I need a way of mounting it, so I made a little mounting bracket here for the camera and a little mounting bracket for the screen. I also need a light source to enlighten shadows so I don't get shadows in my image, which might confuse computer vision. I need a little bit more electronics. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And I also need a physical robot like a frame and a motor. And I have a lot of Maix block stuff, so it was just a quick, easy way to have a couple of Maix block motors and then bolt a frame together with that. Looking at the mounting brackets, I just laser cut them out of acrylic. There's lots of different ways you can make them. This is just a flat piece of acrylic with just 3 holes in it, so that can just simply get bolted to the front of it like that. And then the mounting bracket for the camera, I just laser cut out of acrylic, heated this up here and just bent it into the angle I want for the camera to sit. And this camera here will just go through the hole there. With a little blue tack, I just hold him down and I screw all 3 of them together like that. And then that front bit will just bolt onto the Maix block robot. Looking at the electronics, this is just a NeoPixel strip where I just cut 3 NeoPixels off, soldered 3 wires on it. There's a ground, a 5 volt and a data, and I've just connected them to ground, 5 volt and 1 data pin. I also brought a short little 10-pin ribbon cable to connect the rest of the pins here out to this little perf board I made. Now on this perf board, that's just simply a H bridge to control the motors. There's 2 little plugs here to take the plugs for the Maix block motor. I also have a little user switch here. I have a plug for the battery to plug in and a voltage regulator with a tiny little on-off switch I made. And it's pretty simple. What happens is the power comes in from the battery and goes straight to the H bridge for the motors to be driven at battery voltage. There's also another set that come into this voltage regulator. And this voltage regulator just steps it down from the battery voltage down to 5 voltage. And I also have an on-off switch because it's 5 volts is what this requires as an input. It normally gets it from USB or another 5 volt source. So that's to create my 5 volts. And what happens is it goes from there across to these header pins, comes up this ribbon cable and into the MCU and powers the MCU. And then the rest of the data pins come back down here to switch and control the H bridge, which operates the motors and also sense what this user button switch is doing. So fairly simple, just a battery connector, a little voltage regulator that I paid $1.60 for off the internet, a little H bridge I paid $1.30 for, a couple of little connectors I brought ages ago, certainly less than $1, a little header and a little switch, and some perf board, right? Certainly you would build that whole thing for under $10, and you can just see on the back side of it, I've just wired it all together. Before creating any computer vision code, we need a little bit of code to control the motors and also to control the LED NeoPixels on the front. This here's the motor class I created to control the motors. It's fairly simple. During the initialization, we need to create the PWM speed control. The first two lines here set up the timers to create the PWM. The next two lines here assigns the PWM to the physical pins on the Maix Dock, right? So pin 23 and pin 18 are the two output pins on my Maix Dock that I have connected to the PWM speed control on my H-bridge, the way I've wired my electronics. And the next bit down here sets up the other 5 control pins we need. We need 2 directional control pins for each motor, and we also need 1 pin to operate the standby pin, which is the on-off switch for the H-bridge, right? So this here sets up the pins. This here assigns it to the physical pins on my Maix Dock board. So pin 19 and pin 21 are the physical pins that are connected to motor 1 in and motor second pin in, and same down here. Those are the 2 pins on the Maix Dock board connected to these 2 pins on the H-bridge, and then pin 25 is the pin on the Maix Dock board that is connected to the standby pin on the H-bridge. If I set value to 1, that will turn the H-bridge on. If I set value to 0, that would turn the H-bridge off and we'd no longer be able to control the motors. Then I wrote 2 functions, one function to control the left motor, one function to control the right motor. Both functions are the same, just one's for the left motor and one's for the right motor. Pretty simple. First, I check that the power you've passed to it is in the range of backwards at 100% or forwards at 100%. If it's larger than 100%, I'll make it equal to 100. If it's smaller than negative 100, I'll make it equal to negative 100. Then I just simply say, if it equals 0, I set both directional pins to 1. That activates regenerative braking. So that holds the braking on, and I set the duty, the speed control, to 0. If it's larger than 0, I set the 2 control pins that way around, and I set the duty to whatever power you've asked. If it's not 0 and not larger than 0, then it must be negative. If it's negative, I need to set the directional pins the other way around, and then because you've passed a negative power, I need the duty cycle to be multiplied by -1. The second wheel is exactly the same. I made one function called stop, which basically just sets both powers to both wheels to 0 power. And I made another one called drive. This is quite a useful one. I pass what power I want and how much steering. I set the left wheel to the power and add how much steering you want onto the left wheel. And I set right wheel to the power and I minus off how much steering you want. So that will make the robot go at the speed of the power and turn at the speed of the speed. Right, so the next thing I need to do is I need to actually place this to the board. So if I connect the board physically connect it to my computer, I can come down here and go to connect, COM port 8. That's what window connects it to COM port 8. You might have a different COM port on your computer. And what we can do is we can actually then go File, Save Motor. That saves it on my computer. Once it's saved on my computer, I can go Tools, Transport to the board. I'll click on that and send it to the board. Okay, that means this script now is physically on the Maix Dock board. I can now go and write myself another little script to test that class I made. So I'm just simply going to say from motor control, that's that script I just saved from the board, import motor, that's that class. I'm also going to import time. I'm going to make it instance of motor, and then I'm going to call the drive class to go forward. Oh, that's backwards at 18. Let's go forward first at 18, and no steering. Wait 2 seconds, and then call the stop method. So if we press play here, he goes forward at 18, which is quite slow. If I put -18 in here, and I press 8, he comes back. Oop. Keep him in the frame here. And then if I give him a positive steer, say positive of, say 10, that's 100, positive of 10, so that it will make him steer pretty quickly. Go forward, so let's go backwards, let's go forwards. Let's go forward at 18 and steer positive 10. You see he does that. All right, so a real quick look at here how to control the LEDs on the front. I'm just going to use the inbuilt class that comes with this port of Python. So it's in modules. So from modules, import WS2812, which is the correct name for NeoPixels. I'm just simply going to create a class of that. I'm telling it that I've got it connected to pin 1 and that there's 3 NeoPixels. So you just need to pass the pin number and how many NeoPixels. I've made a little function here that's going to set all the LEDs the same color. So it just simply goes through the 3 LEDs and whatever red, green, and blue are passed to it, it sets them up and then displays them. So at the moment, if I run this, I'm going to set red to 255, which is full red, no green, no blue. So if I press run here, you'll see that all the lights over here glow red. If I want to say try set that to 0, set this one to 255, and I run now, it'll all glow green. And if I set this one here to 255, it'll all grow blue. And of course, what we generally want is a fairly white type color, and we don't want it to be super, super bright or it actually blinds the camera. So we just want enough lighting to light the shadows without blinding the camera. A little bit of playing around, I found if I set them 70, 70, 70, that just gives a nice little glow of white, that it doesn't blind the camera and it lights up the shadow. So that's what I mainly use in my computer vision. Here's the most basic code to start the camera up and start the screen up and just start taking images from the camera and displaying on the screen. Pretty easy. We're setting it up in color mode in this resolution, and then we tell it to wait 2 seconds before moving on. And the reason for this is that just allows it to have some time to auto focus and auto white balance before we move on. A bit of code to start up the screen. Then we just got a loop. We're going to go around forever, where we're just going to get an image from the camera. Later on, we're going to put our processing code here that processes the image to find the line, and then we're just going to display it on the screen. So if I press play now, and we have a look down the bottom here, we'll see when it starts up, waits us 2 seconds, that we're actually starting to get the image displaying on the screen. And you'll also notice in the top of the IDE it displays. But you'll also notice that we have all these shadows and stuff being cast down here as well. So what we will do is we will go to here, Control A, Control C, and drop our lighting code just into here, Control V, press stop, press run again now, from the start up, and you'll find there that these shadows have disappeared. So there's a fairly standard algorithm used for line following. This algorithm is what PixieCam uses, Husky Lens uses, MuCam uses, the Maix Dock camera uses, and this particular algorithm is actually built into this port of Python, and we can use it by just simply using the find lines method, right? And it will return a list of all the lines found. So I'm going to store that in this variable, and then I'm going to cycle through this list and pick off each line and draw that line onto the image. If I get my robot and shift it over the line, you'll see it picks up the line quite well. And then as I move the robot forward, when I get to the intersection, it picks up the line of the intersection quite well as well. So I found this works very well, providing you're following a fairly straight-ish line, because that's what this algorithm does. It looks for straight lines or lines fairly close to being straight. If I want to follow a really curved line, i.e. no longer follow a line, follow a sharp curve, this method works very poorly. So instead of following lines, I'm going to follow color blobs. So I'm looking at color blob tracking now. So instead of using find lines, we're going to use find blobs. And instead of drawing a line where the line is, we're going to draw a rectangle around the blob. Now, one of the big things with finding blobs is you have to define your threshold of what is a blob. And I've done this up here. I have these numbers here to define my blob. And you might wonder, Where did I get those from? So they're lab color space values. So at the moment we're displaying our RGB over here. Let's switch that to lab color space. Now that's the lab color space of the whole image. You can just select part of the image up there. That's the lab color space values of the image up there. Now what we actually want to track is the dark line. So if we have a look here, this is our dark line here. And you can see the first value is between 0 and about 12. The next value up here is between about -10 and +10. And this one's from about -5 to positive about 10, something like that. So I've defined look for everything between 0 and 20. That's in this space here. And -20 and -20. And -20 and -20. Now you find that it's not detecting this center part of the line here. If I detect up here, you can see why we're outside that 20 by 20. So you might think, okay, why don't you give it a higher value? So if I take this up to say, just even 40. So 40 will detect that. We go stop, play. So it detects that bit there, or even nearly right in the center there, but it's also starting to get some false positives over here. And that's quite problematic when we're line following, because all of a sudden you can think the line's right off the side and the robot goes out there. So what we want to do is we want to make this threshold narrow enough that we don't get any false positives. Right, in order to find out all the information that is stored in this blob, I'm going to actually print the blob out to the serial terminal. So opening my serial terminal here, I can see it returns the X, returns the Y, returns the width, returns the height, the total amount of pixels found, the center X of the blob, the center Y of the blob, the rotation of the blob. So if I actually turn the robot and the line goes on a different rotation, you can see actually get different rotations on it. The rotation is actually in radians, not degrees, and we'll talk about that later. Don't worry about the code and the count. So what I'm going to do now is I want to know how many blobs are detected, and I can do that by using the length function. So I'm going to say number of blobs found is equal to the length of all detected blobs. I'm going to say if the number of blobs is larger than 0, i.e. I found one, set the used blob to the very first one. Then cycle through all the ones that are left, and any time the fourth element is bigger than the current one I have, then set the current one I have to the one I'm actually checking. So the fourth element is the total number of pixels in the blob. So if the total number of these pixels is bigger than the one I'm using, then set the one I'm using to the current one that I'm checking. And then I'm going to draw a white rectangle 1 pixel around the outside of it. After I've cycled through all of these, whichever one ended up being the biggest one, I'm going to draw a red rectangle around of 5. If we look up in the image, we're seeing that the biggest one's like this here. If I move around anywhere, it'll always detect the biggest one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw a line from halfway across the screen at the very bottom of the screen to the center of the X of the box at 150 down. And basically in red, 5 pixels thick. And what that line's going to do is it's going to tell me how does the robot need to turn in order to come back to the line. The line's just only, the top bit's only just a little bit across, it doesn't need to turn back much. The line's all the way over there, it needs to be turned back to a lot. So you can basically use the center of the box to create a proportional steerer to steer the robot back. Now, if I want the robot to turn right at the intersection, instead of getting it to follow the center of the box, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it to follow the right of the box. If I wanted it to turn left at the intersection, instead of following the center of the box, I'll get it to follow the left of the box. Okay, let's give it a test run on this really difficult track. So it's a very thin line, very sharp intersections, and very tight turns. I've got it running fairly slow at the moment just to ensure that it's 100% consistent. It has no trouble detecting all the turns, all the intersections, and also detecting the tower, turning around, refinding the line. It's reasonably smooth. I get some little wobbles. Very tight turn, that one. But it's good. It gets around everything consistently. Plenty of room for improvement though. Detects the stop there, and voila, we're back at the end.